After several polls show former President Donald Trump crushing the incumbent in a 2024 rematch, Democratic strategists told their party's hand-wringers. Re-election prospects for President Joe Biden are unknown, if not scary. The majority of Democrats, 58%, favor alternative presidential candidates in 2024. Former President Trump, the likely Republican nominee, and President Biden are tied at best. Re-electionist Joe Biden faces tremendous headwinds. Does his situation suggest a one-term presidency, or are there circumstances that could help him next year? Those who believe a second Trump term is a break-the-glass moment for American democracy must pull out all the stops. Most Americans haven't fully tuned in with less than a year until the 2024 presidential election. That gives Democrats and Republicans hope. A current U.S. president would normally have an edge in re-election. Most incumbents who seek another term win. These are abnormal times. Mr. Biden, who turned 81 Thursday, is the oldest American president, which worries both parties. While dropping, inflation remains above normal as the economy recovers from the pandemic. Two wars abroad threaten U.S. interests and have no end in sight. Critics say Mr. Trump is using autocratic language at home as his backers strategize for a second term that may shake democratic norms. It's shaping up to be a unique election year, but nevertheless, it's typical. The economy and voter impressions of it could determine the outcome. According to 2020 Biden campaign pollster Celinda Lake, it's the single biggest challenge for the administration. Grocery costs are at record highs, and people are reminded of that daily, says Ms. Lake, who leads weekly focus groups. You can't argue with people's real, lived experience. She also claims that unlike previous inflationary periods, consumers expect prices to return to pre-pandemic levels. Black, Hispanic, and young voters, key constituencies, are abandoning the president. NBC News found that 70% of 18 to 34-year-olds disapprove of Mr. Biden's Israel-Hamas war handling. Due to his unwavering backing for Israel in the war, Gallup polls show Mr. Biden's job approval in the 70s among Democrats, a record low for his administration. Biden routinely trails Trump in voter trust on immigration, national security, and foreign policy in polls. While the president leads his likely opponent on abortion rights and democracy, a larger presidential year electorate is less concerned with such concerns. Multiple third-party competitors might steal votes from Mr. Biden in crucial swing states, a pattern that helped Hillary Clinton lose to Mr. Trump in 2016. Is Mr. Biden destined for a second one-term presidency, like George W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, and Gerald Ford? Not always, say historians. We shouldn't take conclusions from early polls because many people haven't focused on the election. Poor early polls can reveal campaign shortcomings and propose ways to retool, as Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama discovered on their road to second terms. Indeed, Mr. Biden, Obama's vice president, may have felt déjà vu. In his first term, Gallup polls placed Mr. Obama's job approval ratings in the low 40s, close to Mr. Biden's. Mr. Biden may not be as charismatic as his former employer or Mr. Trump. In that aspect, presidential expert William Howell argues Democrats' poll anxiety is fair. Gratitude's transformative power. Professor Howell, head of the Center for Effective Government at the University of Chicago, thinks Biden's age is a factor, but Trump has a core base of passion inside the party. Democrats worry about the future of American democracy in 2024. Professor Howell says, "I do believe that very much is on the ballot. I'm not sure that campaign slogan will get Biden reelected. The most important subject may be the least discussed, creating a bizarre dissonance." The Democratic strategist Ms. Lake is currently examining why Mr. Biden is underperforming in surveys and how he can recover. When as a contrast, Joe Biden will get more credit for his accomplishments and unite and energize Democrats, says Ms. Lake. When Trump calls people vermin on Veterans Day, he's at his most focused. That disturbs people, especially women. According to polls, abortion will be Mr. Biden's and Democrats' best issue, as no other issue will energize suburban women. The 2022 Supreme Court overturning of Roe v. Wade, with 3 Trump appointees voting to deny a nationwide right to the operation will. This month, abortion-backed Democrats won off-year elections. A referendum to constitutionalize abortion rights in Ohio succeeded comfortably, replicating other red and purple states. Many states, including crucial Nevada and Arizona, are pushing to put abortion referendums on ballots next year. However, presidential years have higher turnout than off-year elections, And if Mr. Trump is on the ballot, both sides will vote. Former Ohio Democratic Party leader David Pepper believes Mr. Biden and his surrogates merely need to present his economically sound story. They got work to do, but Joe Biden actually has a decent record to run on if they communicate well, Pepper says. What he inherited versus where we are is strong. Watch Ohio Republicans in office discuss the economy, he says, the runaround daily praising it. This is a national recovery, not just Ohio. Mr. Pepper also believes Scranton Joe, Mr. Biden, who enjoys visiting small towns like his Pennsylvania hometown and talking to voters, can improve public perception of the economy. In Mansfield, Ohio, he can declare, "I know what's occurring here. Infrastructure isn't just the billion-dollar Cincinnati Bridge that gets all the headlines." Mr. Pepper says the five-figure initiative might help your town that's been struggling too long. If it's the economy, stupid, remains the campaign slogan. Other factors will play a role, says American University historian Alan Lichtman, who employs 13 keys to predict presidential elections. A year out, 2024 predictions are premature. Despite having two incumbents, Professor Lichtman argues a Biden-Trump campaign will be a reflection on the administration. He argues this election will turn on governance more than anything else. Nonetheless, historical trends are strong but not impregnable. We have an unusual situation. A former president who faces 91 felony counts could be convicted and sentenced to prison before the general election. That might change everything, who knows? A year out, 2024 predictions are premature. Despite having two incumbents, Professor Lichtman argues a Biden-Trump campaign will be a reflection on the administration. He argues this election will turn on governance more than anything else. Nonetheless, historical trends are strong but not impregnable. We have an unusual situation. A former president who faces 91 felony counts could be convicted and sentenced to prison before the general election. That might change everything, who knows? Honest, hopeful, reliable, positive news exists. The Monitor difference: handling difficult headlines humanly, being respectful to sources, seeing the story others miss by reporting our shared ideals. Monitor News alters your worldview. Recently, former Vice President Joe Biden's top advisors and prominent Democrats outside the Biden campaign renewed a long-running discussion over whether he should formally vow to serve only one term. Biden himself signaled to aides that he would serve only one term. Biden has considered making a public pledge, but he and his advisors prefer to quietly indicate that he will almost certainly not run for a second term. Four sources who routinely communicate to Biden, who requested anonymity to discuss internal campaign affairs, said he will not run for re-election in 2024, when he would be the first octogenarian president. A top campaign strategist remarked, "If Biden is elected, he's going to be 82 years old in 4 years, and he won't be running for re-election." The consultant suggested that Biden acknowledge that reality to sway younger supporters, especially on the left, who are unenthusiastic about his candidature and worry that his nomination will stifle the next generation of Democrats for 8 years. Biden may position himself as the ideal candidate to defeat Trump and lead the party's new faces by signaling that he will serve only one term and appointing a youthful and diverse running partner and cabinet. "This makes Biden a terrific transition figure," said the advisor. "I'd love to have an election this year for the next generation of leaders, but if I have to wait 4 years to get rid of Trump, I'll do it." According to another top Biden aide, he's going into this thinking, "I want to find a running mate I can turn things over to after 4 years, but if that's not possible or doesn't happen, then I'll run for re-election." But he's not going to publicly make a one-term. Since Biden's strong primary performance, elite Democratic circles have discussed his age and whether to vow one term. "I'd love to have an election this year for the next generation of leaders, but if I have to wait 4 years to get rid of Trump, I'll do it." Famous Democrats who were initially skeptical about Biden's candidature had changed their minds after Thanksgiving. At third place in national surveys, Elizabeth Warren, who was poised to defeat Biden, has squandered all her gains since July. Pete Buttigieg, who has overtaken Warren as the favorite among white college-educated voters, has shown little sign that he can expand his appeal to African American and Latino voters, even in Iowa. Bernie Sanders, who won 43% in the 2016 primary, has struggled to break out of the mid-teens this year. Biden's elder working-class white and African American base is unbeatable. He has sustained Democratic primary support after a year of national polling. In the Real Clear Politics national polling average on December 8, 2018, Biden has 29% support. December 8, 2019, he has 29% support. Major risks to Biden's African-American base have been neutralized. Kamala Harris announced a campaign halt. Cory Booker has struggled to qualify for the December 19 PBS NewsHour/Politico debate. After entering the contest before Thanksgiving, former Gov. Devil Patrick has rarely been heard from and is polling at 1%. This may be Biden's brief sunshine before dark clouds arrive. In Iowa and New Hampshire, largely white states with college-educated Democrats uninterested in Biden, he is average. Poor results in both states might change the race. Warren, who has a strong national campaign and is Biden's likely biggest primary opponent, could come back. Biden has failed to raise money, whereas Warren, Sanders, and Buttigieg can fund a protracted campaign against him. After the first 4 states vote, billionaire Mike Bloomberg, who has quietly risen to 5th position by spending tens of millions on television advertising, could threaten Super Tuesday on March 3. First day as president as a lame duck affects everything. Cabinet secretaries and subcommittee chairs regard you differently. I don't recommend it politically and governing-wise, but I would actually do it because it's crazy for him to run for a second term. Running for first is crazy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.